Hello, D-Rock here. Welcome to the channel. Some time ago, I was on a motorcycle ride through this part of the high desert. I took a random dirt road off another dirt road and wound up in a ghost town. I had no idea that this place existed, so I was pretty excited to come back and explore it a little more thoroughly. A flash in the pan correctly describes the Stateline Ghost Town. Originally a tent camp in 1896, once word got out that gold and silver was found, the people flocked to the area, and that by 1903, 300 people were living at the opening of this canyon. Stone houses, saloons, hotel, restaurant, the place had all the things. And by 1910, the place was all but abandoned except for a few stragglers. So please join me as I head out to the desert to see what remains of this once thriving but now abandoned town. Buenos dias, man. It is a bit of a frigid morning out here, and I wasn't thinking when I drove out to this spot that a storm had just passed through here the other night, and we're high enough in elevation. There's still snow up here in the high desert. So where I'm at is the Stateline Ghost Town. I never knew this place existed. I came through here almost a year ago on a motorcycle adventure. I just happened to take a dirt road, off another dirt road, and I wound up back here, and I was like, as I was coming back here, I noticed there's stone buildings. I was like, what in the hell is going on? And when I got to this point, I was like, there's a building here, and I was like, man, what is that? That looks like a saloon. Well, turns out this was the Stateline camp. It started in 1896, simply a tent camp. Silver and gold were found, and by 1903 there were 300 people living here. Of course, houses sprouted up, everything was looking good. There was a mill, there was saloons, a hotel. I mean, it was bustling, and then poof, gone. By 1910, all but abandoned. There was a few stragglers, and I think the mining continued sporadically through the turn of the century, of course, on to the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, and I think it was finally completely done by 1980. I think I may have some of my numbers wrong. I did some research. However, this was a very interesting spot. I mean, one moment, there's a thriving community here, and within less than a decade, gone. So I'm sure lots of things occurred here. At the turn of the century, 1896, 1900, 1903, there wasn't a whole lot going on out in this area. So to have this pop up and, all this activity going on had to have been pretty interesting. One other thing I'll note is that not only was mining going on here and the production of gold and silver and all that goes along with it, that follows it, but there's also the element of crime. There's outlaws that came through here. So what would happen is outlaws would steal cattle from the Mormons. They'd come through here, and this is the state line, Utah, Nevada. They'd cut through here to get into Nevada to sell the stolen Mormon cattle. One of note was an outlaw by the name of Nate Hansen. Now, I don't know too much about the individual. From what I researched, I could find very little. However, I do know that a Mormon posse hunted him down and killed him within a few hundred yards of the state line, either on this side or the Nevada side. I'm on the Utah side currently, Nevada side to the west there. So, like I mentioned, this was a common spot for outlaws to run stolen cattle through at the turn of the century. Interesting. Interesting indeed. So when I'm out here today, we're going to have a look at the remains of what remains out here. Some of the structures, there's artifacts everywhere. I mean, behind me, I mean, there's some of the buildings that are still here. There's all kinds of stuff all over the ground. It's very interesting. So we're going to have a look around, see what we come across. And I'm actually going to take a walk. Up in the hills is the old mill. Now, it used to have a wooden structure around it, but apparently that burned. I'm going to walk up there after we have a look in this area and have a look at that. I need to be careful. I didn't bring the hound out with me today because when you get around ruins and such as this, there's always like piles of broken glass and everything. So I got to take that into account. I don't want to slice up her paws out here. I mean, we're remote, so if something happens, we are pretty far away from anything remotely considered civilization. So got to think about these things. Nothing lasts forever, right? This is pretty amazing to think about. I'm not sure what this building was, but it looks like it was pretty nice. Maybe it was, I don't know, there's all kinds of twisted metal in here. Maybe it was a bank, a jail, I don't know. It's not very big. I can't really make out what that crumpled pile of metal is. Maybe it's the roof that was over this thing. I don't know. But it's fascinating to think about out here. Up against these mountains, there were 300 people. Man, look at all the screws and nails on the ground. It's just piles of it. Interesting to see the construction. You know, it's just stones, and then it's like a type of concrete to keep everything in place. It's still standing. Well, there's a pile of rubble inside it. Maybe this was actually someone's house, because behind it there looks to be like old bed springs here. Yeah, old glass. I always tell with old glass it's so thick, you know. Here's an old bundle of barbed wire. I'm under the impression I'm the only person out here, and I've been hearing some strange noises here and there since I pulled in. I think there's some wild burros out in the hills there. And there's some strange sounds coming from the mill. Metal moving. There's no wind, so I don't know. I can have a vivid imagination sometimes. This place would be interesting to spend the night in. No doubt about that. I'm not saying I believe in ghosts, but it's fun to entertain the thought sometime. Definitely feel like this was someone's house. It's got 2 rooms. We'll walk through here and have a look. Yes, it's incredible. And this place is about 110, 120 years old, right around those lines. Oh yeah, this is definitely someone's house. This looks to be of pretty high quality considering the time period and the location. So imagine whoever lived here wasn't just someone panning for gold in the stream. Yeah. Got a nice window right here. Fascinating. all kinds of old cans here. You see the imprints of where the key to open the can would have been. Probably like a sardine tin or something. Yeah. And of course, there's broken glass everywhere. Yeah, there's cans everywhere. Wow. Punch here. Wow. Like finding the old colored glass like this. Had to be some really interesting bottles. That'd be interesting to find an intact bottle from the time period out here, but highly doubt that. Everything seems to be just pretty trashed. Once again, we're in a spot where I certainly wish the walls could talk, because I would imagine there are some very interesting stories of happenings that occurred in this structure and around it. I feel like this was probably a saloon, and this is interesting because the plaster on the walls has a lot of initials and stuff like that. It's fascinating to think about. We got things like was here, E was here, I'm not sure. KWL, interesting. I feel like this could possibly, this ground is covered in broken glass in here. So, and oh, there's like remnants of a bottle top. Start things shifting up there. I don't want anything to come down on me. However, the best one is this one right here. This individual wanted to make sure that his words were noticed. Introducing Big Frank Spud with an obvious, you can figure out what that is. Processing mill's up here, and it looks like there's an old path cut up the hill. I'm just gonna follow that. Now, this is Rice Canyon. There's dirt paths leading all over through the canyon and the mountains here. There's probably mines all over the place, so I'm not gonna go out in search of them today. But like I said earlier, how the outlaws would run stolen cattle through here. They just pass through this canyon onto the other side and into Nevada. And that's where they'd sell the stolen cattle. And sometimes they got caught, and sometimes they were hunted and murdered. Well, I thought that path led to the mill, but I was incorrect. We're just gonna walk the hillside till we get there. Well, here's what remains of the processing mill. Huh, that had to be interesting getting all this equipment up here. Man, that's some machinery. Oh, here's the culprit of what I heard down below. There's a little breeze up here. But when I was down at the bottom, there was no breeze, and I heard it sounded like metal slapping against metal up here. I was like, yeah, what's going on up there? So I'm sure that can be a little unnerving in the middle of the night, right? Well, nothing but the crows and the burros are out here now. And honestly, this place is kind of eerie. Still cool as hell, though. Well, there you have it. Stateline Ghost Town. What a trip, man. If any of you watching have any specific history about this area, by all means, hit up those comments. I really couldn't find too much when I searched about the history of the area. So if you have any knowledge of events or the Outlaws or anything of that nature, by all means, hit up those comments. I'd love to hear about it. And folks, there you have it. Appreciate you watching. I got lots more content on the way. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. It is free and it helps the channel tremendously. We'll see you next time. D-Rock out. Adios.